What if there was a strategy game on the Famicom based around real-world military hardware, and the two sides, red and blue, had to capture each other's capital to win the map? And on every turn they'd get some income based on how many cities they control, and use that to buy more forces. Nintendo beat both tech to the Famicom with their Famicom Wars, but it was really based on the success of the computer game Daisenryaku. So both tech's game predates Famicom Wars, even though the Famicom port was released about 2 months later. There are two key differences between Daisenryaku and Famicom Wars. Daisenryaku tends to use some real-world stuff, which gives it an air of verisimilitude. The other significant difference is Daisenryaku uses hexes instead of squares. Yeah, they draw them on screen as squares, but the offset means that they're hexes. The main menu for Daisenryaku is a bit confusing. Hitting up and down changes which block you're controlling, and hitting select changes the option. The first thing you'll need to do is load a map, and the game comes with 30 scenarios that you can play from either side. One of the most interesting things in Daisenryaku for me is that about half the maps are real-world locations. Do you want to know who would win in a war between Osaka and Nagoya? How about China versus Korea? Or perhaps you have more of a current events vibe and would like to find out who would win in a modern civil war in the United States. From the main menu, you can also adjust how much income you get. Obviously, if you increase it, you'll be able to build more stuff, but you'll also have to beat down your opponent longer. When you get into the battle scene, the first thing that you're going to notice is that you can't just hit up and down to switch rows. The game makes you use the diagonals to go to the neighboring hexes. On your turn, you can press the B button to bring up a big strategic map, and you can scroll around to a section you'd like to examine closer. Pressing the A button brings up a menu. The key commands here are Go, Next Unit that hasn't moved, End Turn, Build, Zoom to Headquarters, Options, Supply, and Unit Overview. Go is pretty straightforward. Select a unit, hit Go, and then you can move them according to their speed. I actually didn't notice a lot of terrain effects on speed. My tanks seem to be able to drive through woods just fine. If your movement takes you near an enemy unit, including if you start your move next to one, then you have the option to attack. And you go into this zoomed in view where everyone takes some shots back and forth. Unit strength starts at 10, and as the men or vehicles are destroyed, they get weaker. If infantry end their movement on an uncontrolled city, then they capture it. Building has to be done close to your headquarters, and selecting it will bring up a menu of what you could build. The bottom two options are infantry, the top options are aircraft, and in between you've got your supply vehicles, tanks, artillery pieces. It actually didn't feel like a huge variety of units to me, and aircraft definitely seem to be overrepresented. Supply will let you get your fuel and ammo back if you're near a city or supply vehicle. If you play on a small map, though, you probably aren't going to need to resupply. And that's literally everything you need to know about playing Daisenryaku. The scenarios aren't balanced, but that's to be expected here. If you want an easier time, play the scenario from the side that has the advantage. There's only one level of AI as well. I felt like a lot of the maps were way too big. I played the United States scenario for about 20 minutes and got nowhere near conflict, so I switched to a smaller map. Daisenryaku was enormously popular. It's one of the cornerstones of Japanese strategy games, and you'll find a version of it on every platform since the Famicom. A couple of those even got released in the US. I found this version to be a bit slow and clunky though. A better interface and more zoomed out view probably would have helped. And I would have liked to have seen more focused scenarios. As it is, Daisenryaku is more of a wargaming toolkit, where they just didn't give you the tools. It's kind of generic, but it also gives you slightly more realism than Famicom Wars does. Between the two, I'd play Famicom Wars. the interface is just a bit more friendly. But I also appreciate Daisenryaku because I know what it becomes. It's an important game, but not the best game.